Hey guys, today on Witch Please, I wanted to take a minute. I wanted to take a moment and discuss some of my favorite formularies. Okay, so like a lot of witches, I love blending my own formulas for incenses and oils and other potions and ointments and things. So today, I went rummaging through my library, my personal library, not the public library or anything like that, and I pulled up all of my favorite formularies, and I wanted to really discuss them today. So I'll be giving a general overview of them, maybe sort of a mini review. And the first one is which anyone who has taken an interest in blending their own formulas, their own incenses and oils, will know this book. It's almost considered a classic in and of itself. It is the complete book of incense, oils, and brews by Scott Cunningham. It's the very first book on the subject I ever bought. It is the third edition, I think. I think there were two other editions before that. The first one, maybe even the second one, but I know the first one definitely did not have any proportions given. It was just a listing of ingredients. Scott got so many letters from people asking for more information that he decided to actually make it more recipe-like. Later on, when I actually bought his biography, it actually includes in the back in the appendix, the very first formula that Scott Cunningham ever wrote. It was a self-published book, very thin, and it was just a formula book of magical incenses and oils. And in it, there are actually quite a few recipes that actually didn't make the cut into this book here. You know, like cedar oil, for instance, is in here, and it is even in here. This book actually contains a second version of Scott Cunningham's cedar oil, and cedar oil is actually a traditional formula for love spells and sex spells. You know, if you want to get laid, it's really popular with the gay community. But Scott Cunningham actually has two recipes for it. Then the next book I bought on the subject years and years ago is the Magical Formulary Spellbook, Volumes 1 and 2. This book, actually, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, entered the public domain early on with the age of the internet. You can look up all the formulas in here, but I just wanted a copy of the book itself for my own library, for my own uses, so I could just run to it whenever I wanted to. If the internet was down, I wouldn't have to look something up if I wanted to. But these are actually expanded versions that include spells. The second volume actually isn't a formulary per se. It's rather a book that pontificates more on the magical uses of the oils that are in volume 1, and also it's somewhat of an herbal as well. It includes the magical uses of many herbs. This next formulary is by far one of my favorites. It is by Lady Rhea. It is her Enchanted Formulary. And many of the formulas within this book are either based off of the magical formulary, because she worked with Herman Slater and Clinton Stephen, who actually created the formulary together. Um, um, Otherwise, many of the recipes are her own unique formulas, or they are inspired by the formulas from the magical formulary. Um, I am actually working with Lady Rhea now on editing this book, um, so that she can bring it back out to the public, because she wants to add more formulas to it and self-publish it again. So look forward to that. I have given her sort of a list of ideas that I think would make the book even better than the original mainstream publication. So I hope she takes my word on that. Another formulary that has graced my shelf for years is an English book by Band Publishers. They're sort of considered the Llewellyn of the UK. From some friends of mine anyway. It is Magical Incenses and Oils by Anna Franklin, who's another friend of mine. I've known her for years, since the early 2000s. It it it, it it's actually a really, really good book. Unlike other books, other formularies, it actually includes incense and oil recipes for British and Celtic deities that are so often overlooked by other formularies. And I would be remiss without recommending her Herbal, which is Herbcraft, a guide to the shamanic and ritual use of herbs, by Anna Franklin and Susan Lavender. And if you've never read this book before, I strongly urge you to get it. It continues to be my favorite herbal, my favorite book on the subject of herbal magic to this day. It really inspired me to want to write my own book on herbal magic, and I'm actually doing that at this moment. This is actually a more recent book, a more recent herbal, actually. It was published in 2011 by Karen Harrison, who is actually the owner, I believe, of Isis Books in Colorado. And it is the Herbal Alchemist's Handbook. It's okay. So I was interrupted for a few minutes, but as I was saying, this book is more of a handbook. There aren't really many recipes in it. Actually, what recipes there are occupy 8 pages within the fifth appendix of the book. Otherwise, it's a treatise on planetary magic and even the magical uses of herbs, and how the author really goes about creating a formula from start to finish, and different things to consider, such as looking into someone's chart to make a formula that's more tailored to them. And it's really a really good book. It includes a lot of the information that I'm actually that I before I even read this, I was planning on including it into my own book on a similar subject. So love when that happens. Not really, but uh, another really recent book of mine, or it's not so much a formulary per se, but it includes all of the formulas she's published and many of the formulas that she sold in her former shop in Salem, Massachusetts, and it is Laurie Kevin's book of spells and enchantments. So if you were interested in really looking at and sort of analyzing even many of the formulas that she's published or created over the years, over her 80 years as a witch, really get a copy of this book. It's really very good. My only complaint with it is the editing. It was unfortunately edited. The primary editor said it um, in in the book said that it went before 4 different editors. Unfortunately, if it did, they were really sleeping on the job because there is a lot of sloppy editing in the book. A lot of misspellings and typos. Some sections are almost typo free, but others are just littered with typographical errors and poorly sentences that don't make a lot of sense, as if they were sort of changing them halfway through and got sidetracked. But because Laurie is such a luminary in the witchcraft movement, she deserved much better than that. I would have really had made that book shine editing wise, because she deserves it. She is worthy of it. But really, that's the only real thing that really stuck out at me as really unfortunate about the book at all. Otherwise, it's an excellent book. She's published a lot of things that she's published before, but that's fine. They are just in a new way. Um, um, it's a phenomenal book. Even there are even new ways of sort of what I want to say, developing your craft in a sense. She gives, for example, full moon potions, which I've actually been brewing my own full moon potions ever since I read this book. It really inspired me to want to go and do something and create more magic that way. Because by brewing such a potion, you really put yourself in tune with the energies of that lunar cycle on your altar. Because if you honor the Sabbats, you are invoking the sort of the solar tides in your altar. But if you also brew a full moon potion, you're also drawing that same lunar energy into your altar as well. So yeah. One of the last formularies that I recommend, and again, it's not really a formulary per se. As with Karen's book, the formulary is only the second appendix, and it is only 4 pages long, but it's very interesting. It is Zora Neale Hurston's Mules and Men. And she is an anthropologist and was able to really record a lot of valuable hoodoo formulas. And I have another formulary that, to my knowledge, has never been published. I received this from a friend of mine years and years and years ago. And it's part of a larger series of documents that I've never been able to ascertain yet. I eventually found the website that the owner of these documents had, or at least had. I'm not sure if they're still living or not. The website's still up, as I recall. I haven't checked it in a few years. I've actually lost the website address by now, I think. But yeah, I actually tried contacting them to try and get a hold of the other documents in the set that I am lacking, because it's really a very interesting read. It's traditional American herbal magic, candle spells, formulas, things like that. Actually, formulas that didn't make their way into the magical formulary. Let's see, there is. Hold on, just a minute. Here we go. He's Mine formula, which is orange blossom, jasmine, and musk. There are several formulas that He's Mine formula is called for in one of the spells in the Magical Formulary spell book. But at that time, I did not have access to these documents, and I had been curious for a long time where or what actually goes into that formula. So I was always thankful that these documents came to me when they did. Now, that being said, I want to give sort of a caveat. There are two books out there, two formularies that should really be avoided if you can, because they're really not really worth your money. They are Kitchen Witchery, a compendium of oils, unguents, incense, tinctures, and comestibles by Marilyn F. Daniel. That book in particular is problematic because it's a compendium, but it's a compendium of almost all of the formulas that I have given so far. In fact, it's basically an utter ripoff of Scott Cunningham's book of incense, oils, and brews. It also contains many of Valoric Habit's potions. It includes incenses and oils given by Janet and Stuart Farrar. And I could go on and on and on about the published authors whose formulas made it into that book, and the author didn't really even have the grace to cite them in her bibliography. I actually bought that book when I first saw it because I had such an interest in formulating my own incenses and oils. I thought it would be the author's own formulas and recipes. I owned it for a total of 15 minutes before I slammed the cover shut. Took it right back to Borders Books, which, God, I miss Borders Books. Whoever did whoever was in their book buying department did a banger job, just a smashing success in that department because they knew what they were doing. I've never seen such a good selection of contemporary books before. Not even at Barnes and Nobles, they don't even do it as well as Borders did. But I digress. I took it back. It was, in my opinion, a complete work of plagiarism in a sense. I mean, I know that recipes and titles cannot be copyrighted, but there's still a little thing that I like to consider integrity when doing so. She could have at least said this is my own interpretation of these formulas from these authors, but she didn't. It was really unfortunate to see, and the other book that I really wouldn't bother with buying is Llewellyn's Complete Formulary of Magical Oils. Now, the author has her own apothecary, and she makes her own incenses and oils for a variety of occult stores throughout the country. And I was expecting, when I first saw this book, that it would be her own collection of incenses and oils and other formulas of that sort, but it wasn't. I mean, there were some formulas that I didn't recognize, and as you can see, I have almost every published formulary on the market except two. One by Terror Star, and I think it's called The Witch's Formulary, and another, I'm spacing on the author's name, Carlos something or another, and it is a Santeria formulary, and I really, really want those, but I haven't got them yet. But really, it may have included some of her recipes. I really wish that she would have just written a book that was only her formulas, not anyone else's, because it contained every formula in this book, even the proportions of the formulas, and I think that was. Well, I contacted the author and asked her about it, and she said that she had no choice in the matter, that it was done by Llewellyn themselves. So she really didn't have any say in that matter. But yeah, I really would like to see her write another book in the future that is her own formulas. That would really be interesting. There is, however, one book that has not yet been published that I have been waiting for years. I know the author; she's a good friend of mine. She has written a few things, and she's really been teasing us over the years, saying that she's writing a formula, that she will eventually come out with it. And I really hope she does. I'm really excited to see it. It will be on my wish list to buy it as soon as it hits the market. And that is, of course, it doesn't have a name, but the author is well known. It is Morgana She-Raven, who is the former owner of Morgana's Cauldron in New York City, which went out of business, I want to say about 10 years ago, maybe more. But yeah, this has just sort of been sort of a show and tell, a sort of a mini multiple book review of my favorite formularies, and I hope you like it. I hope it's you do want to go out and buy a few books if you are in the market for Ria's formulary, though. If you can be patient, I am working on finishing it with Ria, so it will be published again shortly. So until next time, keep calm and witch on.